Back when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 was released back in 2007, it was a lot of people's first time seeing the character Venom, and they were instantly fascinated with him. And for the next year, 3 Spider-Man games were released, and all three's main villain was Venom. Like I said in my Ultimate Spider-Man video, I'm going to be skipping the movie games for now, and I'm going to be skipping Friend or Foe because it looks lame, and this game cost me $100. So let's look at Spider-Man: Web of Shadows. Spider-Man's walking with his head down while chaos ensues, and he hears voices of his friends. He then asks his shield soldier where Luke Cage and Mary Jane are.
Now where is Cage and his search party? Where is MJ?
And instantly, the voice actor makes me want to kill myself because he sounds like a fucking idiot. Just like in Ultimate Spider-Man, I hate this voice actor. He portrays Spidey, or Spider-Man, as an annoying and unconfident person rather than the brave and outspoken person we already know. Cage and MJ come in and you apologize to MJ for using the suit again, and Cage basically tells you to fuck off and then steals Mary Jane away from you. While pleading your case, you sense somebody in the distance, and it's Felicia, and then boom, it's 4 days earlier. You're fighting Venom, and during the fight, the symbiote forms with you, and you have the ability to switch between the black suit and the normal red and blue suit whenever you want. Each suit has its own fighting abilities, but the black suit is undoubtedly way better. After beating Venom, he vanishes and you follow Mary Jane's ambulance to the hospital until a gang war breaks out and you and Luke Cage deal with it. For some reason, Cage teaches you how to fight, and I think this is stupid because the game doesn't take place right when Peter Parker gets his powers. It's a few years later, and I just don't understand why this tutorial mission is teaching you how to do combat when you've already been Spider-Man for a long time. But I understand that it's a tutorial, so you have to get through it, but I feel like this could have been done a lot better. After learning how to fight, Cage needs your help to settle a rivalry between gangs. While scoping out the scene, you see there are snipers along rooftops trying to sabotage the treaty, and you stop them. Then you are faced with your choice of playing the game, in the traditional Spider-Man way or the Bully Maguire way. The way you choose to play the game changes the outcome of the story's ending, which there are 4 of. I chose the good path first, and you solve the gang's differences. You head over to Fisk Tower to confront him about the snipers you spotted, but Black Cat appears and you chase her around for a while until you're stopped by a couple of goons, but Moon Knight comes to your protection. You catch up to Cat and the funniest QuickTime event happens, where you have to save her from falling off a building. Taking a page out of Spider-Man 3's book of the funny QuickTime events, this game has so many of those, and the fails are especially funny due to the voice actor being, ass. Anyway, Felicia tells you that she still loves you, and I chose a dark path this time because Mary Jane in this game is really, really fucking annoying. Felicia tells you there's going to be an attack on the Daily Bugle, but it's actually at some courthouse, and then you fight the Vulture. And this kicks off the start of easy boss battles throughout the game. I chose the so-called dark path, but you just thread him and leave him webbed up on a billboard, so this was probably the least dark decision throughout the entire game. Swinging around, you get attacked by some deranged civilians. Instead of subduing them, you just throw them off a building, leaving them to die. After killing civilians, you're attacked by Wolverine, and while y'all are fighting, he takes time out to ask you comic book history trivia questions, which I found was pretty fun and cool, but I only got one right. After the fight, Wolverine finally believes that you are the real Spider-Man, and you team up with him to find and stop Venom. You find Venom first, and you realize he's been infecting civilians with the symbiote, and so you fight him for that. For a Spider-Man vs. Venom game, Venom only appears 3 times, and all those times are during boss fights, and he probably only shares the screen with Spider-Man only about maybe 6 minutes outside, maybe 2 minutes with the cutscenes. We never learned why Venom is trying to infect everyone and his reasoning behind that. When this game came out, it had a lot of mixed reviews because the story they're trying to tell has a lot of potential, but it's a little all over the place with a bunch of comic book character cameos, which some are good, which is probably just the Wolverine character, and nobody else in my opinion. Speaking of more cameos, while swinging around the city, you see that S.H.I.E.L.D. is setting up more quarantine zones for the infected civilians. While you're checking it out, Black Widow comes to arrest you because you threw people off those buildings earlier. But before she can do that, Electro comes in looking for his sister, so you fight him. Electro actually has a cool costume in this game, and to be honest, everyone has some pretty cool costumes that actually go along in this game's universe, except for maybe Venom, because I kind of don't like his veiny design, just how they do in the Venom movies. Anyway, after kicking Electro's ass, his sister infects him with the symbiote, and then he disappears. Mary Jane calls you up and informs you that S.H.I.E.L.D. has put the city on lockdown, so you head over to one of New York's bridges, and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are stopping the Kingpin from leaving the city. Kingpin gives you an idea to call up Tony Stark and Reed Richards so they can fix this whole Venom situation, but you get sent straight to voicemail. After your calls don't work, you decide to break the Tinkerer out of jail, and you get to decide if you want Moon Knight's help or the Vulture's. And I chose Moon Knight because I thought he would end up helping me fight throughout the prison, but he ends up just dropping me off. You release Rhino out of his cage and use him as a battering ram to get through the impenetrable parts of the prison. And after getting the Tinkerer out, you have the option to let Rhino go or leave him in jail. And I chose to let him go because I want him a part of my squad. Speaking of which, whenever you make a choice, that decision you end up making affects what side of characters you get to use to help you fight enemies. I think this idea is pretty cool, but they can't help during boss fights, and the regular enemies are pretty light, so there's no real use in this feature. While leaving the island, Black Widow confronts you, and you explain your situation, and she decides to help you out and takes you and the Tinkerer off the island on a helicarrier, but after that, they end up destroying all of Manhattan's bridges so that the symbiote outbreak won't leave. But this is a stupid decision made by the writers because Venom can breathe underwater, so that allows him just to, swim across the river to Queens or I don't know, Staten Island or wherever the fuck New York is. Or surrounding areas around New York. You know what I'm trying to say. Back in New York, Black Widow has turned Stark Tower into a base of operations surrounded by a fence of supersonic waves that keeps the symbiotes out, but for some reason, you can just walk straight through them. Anyway, you go to the Kingpin, ask him if the Tinker can work here, and he agrees. You then fight Electro, but a symbiote version of him, and this is my favorite boss fight because it is the only time I ever died in this game. And speaking of boss fights, this game is easier on the boss fights compared to Ultimate Spider-Man due to the fact you can just leave the area and regenerate your health. Speaking of health, this game is annoying on how you upgrade your health. You need to collect over 2,600 little Spider-Man collectibles throughout the map to gain full health, but you should be fine because I only collected around 150 of these, and I still beat the game pretty easily. After you beat Electro, you rip the symbiote off of him and have the choice to let him join you on your path of revenge, or you can tell him to go fuck off. But I wanted another partner in crime, so I let him go. The next couple of missions are just filler of you saving people, and where Moon Knight and Black Widow also give you little side missions that ultimately add up to nothing. Finally get a hold of Mary Jane and Luke Cage, and you meet up with them to devise a plan to get everyone out of Harlem, but you need the Wolverine's help. Find Wolverine protecting people in a church, so you help him until he gets infected with the symbiote. And he looks awesome, and this fight is awesome as fuck. There's a lot of potential with this game, especially with the amount of characters they added, but the story just isn't really there. But one thing that is there is the updated combat from the previous games. The chain combat is awesome. You can fight on walls, on the ground, in the air, and especially when you switch between suits, making new combo chains, but the camera can be pretty hard to deal with at times. After saving Wolverine, he literally rips himself open to get the symbiote out, but they can't show that, but the concept is actually pretty cool. After going to get Wolverine to help you escort civilians out of Harlem, he doesn't show up on the next mission, so you protect the convoy of civilians against waves of symbiotes by yourself. After extracting all the civilians, you look for Mary Jane, and that takes us straight back to the start of the game. The Felicia we saw in the beginning is a symbiote version. While fighting her, Mary Jane backs you up. After beating her, she tells you to go end this. Felicia is badly injured, and you have a choice to let Mary Jane take Felicia to help her out, or you can form her with the symbiote again, and she can be your lover. I chose to let Mary Jane help her. You head back to Fisk's tower to detonate the bomb the Tinkerer made, but the Vulture has taken over the tower with the bomb on it, and he also has a symbiote. After being the Vulture, he tries to persuade you not to detonate the bomb because you lose all your new power, and since I played the bully side too much, I didn't get the chance to detonate the bomb because it just didn't let me. So you and Vulture go take Venom out all by yourselves. You decide to take over a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, and then Venom shows up. And this boss fight is actually awesome, but when you auto-lock on the enemies, the camera angles can get real bad, and since there are so many entities on this fight, the game drastically drops frames, and that happens throughout all of the boss fights. After defeating the multiple heads of Venom, you try and reason with Eddie, and you get to decide his fate. Either you can let him sacrifice himself and end the monster Venom as a hero, or you can just kill him and get the same result. I chose the good choice, and the ending is actually pretty good. I was surprised due to the mediocre storytelling, but this is a bright spot in this game. After all of that, I got the bad guy ending where you are now the leader of the symbiotes, and now you rule over New York. And the symbiote version of Wolverine is out to hunt you. In my opinion, I got the best ending, which there are 4 of. There are 2 bad ones and 2 good ones, which either leave you with Felicia by your side as ruler, you and MJ are back together, and the city is safe, or you're all alone, the city is safe. After playing this game for multiple weeks, I had a lot of fun with the game. but it has its upsides and its downsides. Its downsides are the story is all over the place, never really having a well-connected plot. The amount of superheroes we have are cool, but most don't get a backstory or any character development besides maybe Wolverine. The game can be really laggy at times, the dialogue between the characters is pretty stiff, and there's no other suits to change into unless you play the Wii version. And my biggest nitpick of all time for this game would be that you never spend any time with the Peter Parker side of Spider-Man. There's no reference to his life outside of being a superhero, and that just sucks. Some of the positives are that the open world is a lot bigger than I expected, but after beating the game, you don't get to explore it afterwards. The looks of a lot of the characters are really cool, especially the symbiotic versions of the boss battles, especially with Wolverine and Electro. And I really like the suit design for Spider-Man in both the red and blue and, the regular old black suit. But the only characters that don't really look cool is Black Widow, and you can't really do anything about Luke Cage because all he does is wear a yellow shirt. But anyway, these guys look perfect for what this game is trying to show. I like the multiple endings aspect of the story, but only 2 of them are actually, good, and with that, you have to play the bad guy side for the entire game to get those good endings. Like I said, the combat is great and a far better improvement from the past couple of games. And I know this is a really bad way to describe my favorite part about the game, but it's all the funny parts of this game just because of the actor not portraying his emotion all that well in the QuickTime events, which can lead up to some pretty funny moments. So, can the good outweigh the bad, just how this game's story tries to show? I would say maybe. If you're coming for a great story and character development, then no. But if you're coming for a great combat mechanics and fun boss battles, then this game is just for you. For Ultimate Spider-Man, I gave that game a mid to low 6, and I don't think this game is better or worse, but I think this game has its moments, so I would say a high 6. The moments that outshine the bad for me was everything that includes Venom and the black suit. Just like I said in the intro, a lot of people were introduced to Venom in 2007, and so was I. And since then, I have always been in love with the whole concept and character of the black suit. So I have a little bias towards that. Soon I'll be covering Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, where they added 4 versions of Spider-Man, and I can't wait for it, so please check it out when I do upload it.